how Miami school became a beacon for anti-vaxxers. So there's a new dilemma now that they've been. I don't know if you noticed that there's been a lot of reopening in some places, especially here in California. There's been a lot of reopening of some businesses. There's still some places that are closed. So let me read that again. This is out of the New Yorker. It's called How a Miami School Became a Beacon for Anti-Vaxxers. So there's this dilemma for teachers now. And so I would also say it's discriminatory in some sense because some schools will not allow teachers who have been vaccinated to work there. And so let me get into this. And then there's a lot of conspiracy behind all of these things that are going on. So this is yet but one of many things that is brewing in terms of how this is going to affect teachers all over in different states. So, how a Miami school became a beacon for anti-vaxxers. So, here's the school here in Miami, and this is by Patricia Mazie. So, this just came out. It says Miami, a fifth grade math and science teacher peddled a bogus conspiracy theory Wednesday to students at Centner Academy, a private school in Miami, warning them that they should not hug parents who had been vaccinated against the coronavirus for more than 5 seconds because they might be exposed to the harmful vaccine shedding. So, Ola Miami, one student wrote in an email to her parents from school saying that the teacher was telling us to stay away from you guys. And so, nearly a week before, the school had threatened teachers' employment if they got a coronavirus vaccine before the end of the school year. So, if you get a shot or you get all your shots, you won't be able to work as a teacher. And so this is what's going on now. So we have some more problems brewing in terms of people going back to certain jobs or careers, professions, that is. And so alarmed parents frantically texted one another on the WhatsApp trying to find a way to pull their children out of the end of the term. And so inside the Centner Academy, however, hundreds of queries from all over the world came in for teaching positions according to the administration. So more came from people who wanted to enroll their children at a school where tuition runs up to about $30,000 a year. And so the small school in Miami trending design district became a national beacon for anti-vaccination activists as well. And so you're going to get these people out there pushing their theories even harder now because this is becoming a big issue now for teachers and students going back to some of these schools. So activists practically overnight they became this big thing for these schools, just as the U.S. public health officials wrestled with how to overcome vaccination or vaccine skepticism. And so this is starting this whole thing up. So the policy is barring teachers from contact with students after getting the vaccination or vaccine shots brought a flurry of television crews, news crews who parked outside of the school for days, prompting teachers to keep children indoors for physical education and recess. So Layla Centner, the school's co-founder, who said that she's not against fully tested vaccines, wrote on an Instagram that the media are trying to destroy my reputation because I went against their narrative. So devoted supporters cheered her on. So we won't let them take you down. And one of them on Instagram, we wrote on Instagram, we stand strong with you, and you're an angel trying to save our kids and teachers. So Centner, an avid social media user who has long used her accounts to document her luxurious lifestyle, took effective control of the school last year in the midst of the pandemic. She told the community that the school with the pre-kindergarten through 8th grade would focus on happiness and espouse medical freedom as well. But interviews with the 21 current and former parents and teachers, as well as a review of social media posts on the school document, email, text messages, and videos show how the wealthy and well-connected Centner brought her anti-vaccination and anti-masking views into the school's day-to-day life, turning what had been a tight-knit community into a bitterly split between those who support her views on vaccinations and those who don't. And so it goes on to say that she pulled her daughter out of the school on Friday. And so this is, well, basically, I jumped ahead. So every afternoon, I have explained things to my child when she comes home and says, "How come the school says that what you're saying is not right?" said Iris Acosta Zobel, referring to the importance that she gives at home to masking and vaccination. So she pulled her daughter out of school on Friday. And so David Centner, former electronic highway tolling entrepreneur who co-founded the school in its current iteration with his wife, said in a written response to the questions on the schools was listening to families. So we met with more than 70 parents, and we were pleased that so many families continue to support a mission and trust us with children, he said. So Sarah Dagnan, who has 4 children at the school, said that she was not troubled by the controversy that was going on. So everything was blown out of proportion, she said. "I'm comfortable with holding off on vaccines, and my main concern is the happiness of the kids." And so most people interviewed for the article requested anonymity to protect their identity, and so children of their employment and protect their children of their employment. And so some former parents and teachers say that they feared retaliations if they spoke publicly out about their views. Of course, I believe that's what's going on. So others declined to comment because the school had made them sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so the anti-vaccination policy requires recently vaccinated teachers to maintain a distance from students. So Layla Centner told teachers not to hug the children, for example. "It caused us a frenzy." The reporter asked about it during a White House briefing. So the school received $804,375 or no, $804,375 from the Federal Paycheck Protection Program during the pandemic. So Jen Psaki, a press secretary, noted that a public health guideline strongly encouraged vaccines against the coronavirus and are meant to keep people safe. And so the Centner Academy, opened its current um, from last year after the Centners, who previously owned just the preschool, took over the Metropolitan International School and established private school that focused on a foreign language and served the international clientele. So its owner retired and said the school would merge with a preschool owned by the Centners, and so, who had donated heavily in the recent years in the Republican Party, which was former Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. So by the time the pandemic hit, the school's old identity and leaders were gone, and the Centners were at the helm. So things began to change, parents said. Surveillance cameras were installed and record both video and audio for what David Centner said were security and insurance purposes. So Layla Centner once remarked that children should be kept away from the windows and for fear of radiation of 5G cell towers. another baseless conspiracy theory that was also touted. So the windows at the preschool now have electromagnetic frequency shielding blockers. David Centner said in response to a question about the school's 5G concerns, the school opposed feeding children sugar and gluten and required that the students have different shoes for indoors and then for outdoors. So some parents said that they thought such ideas that are odd but inoffensive, unlike what began to happen with the school's response to the coronavirus. So the school opened for in-person instruction in September and initially pledged to follow Centers for Disease Controls, or CDC as we know it, and prevention guidelines as well as local mask mandate. But teachers said they found no attempt at social distancing during orientation in August. So Layla Centner discouraged mask use. So this school, they weren't even encouraging them to get vaccinated or wear masks, and they believe in 5G theory um, of the cell phone towers. So teachers had to sign waivers acknowledging that there was a health risk associated with returning to work in person. And they have a problem. This also, let me add, they have a problem with teachers who are vaccinated, and they're basically telling um, kids not to hug people who are vaccinated. Recently, that teachers won't be hired if they've been vaccinated recently. And so this is the thing that's been going on. So parents were offered forms to exempt their children, and it says from any need to wear masks. Okay, so let me go back up. So when the Florida Department of Health visited the routine food inspection in August and December, teachers were told to mask up, according to a former teacher and current teacher who had produced the WhatsApp messages as proof. So parents were offered these forms to exempt their children who from any need to wear these masks, similar to a school policy that also exempts children from vaccines as well, of all kinds, if their parents wish. So Layla Centner operated the WhatsApp group Knowledge is Key, joining what was optional, David Centner said, so on which she shared an anti-vaccination material with teachers. And so when the parent asked if the school would mandate the flu vaccine, Layla laid out a skepticism about vaccines in a letter to the parents, and she cited the nonprofit organization started by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., an anti-vaccination crusader. Okay, and so they're basically going on the premise of their theories are political theories, and the school is based on that, and so that's the reason why they are coming at people, the parents and the students, with these theories. And so, as many of you may have learned by now, we are not blind followers, and we try not to make fear-based decisions, she wrote. And so in November, two grade levels in the preschool added 2 days of online-only instruction to their long Thanksgiving break after several COVID-19 cases were confirmed at that school. And so once Florida began administering the vaccines, the coronavirus vaccine, Layla Centner invited members to the school community to a virtual talk with an anti-vaccination pediatrician to discuss potential dangers of vaccines. So basically, they've been trying to tell people not to get vaccinated, and they've been pushing that heavily at this particular school. So Kennedy visited the school and met with teachers. So did another anti-vaccination activist who also met with the students as well. And so then came an announcement that vaccinated teachers would have to stay away from students or would not be allowed to return for now if they get the vaccine over the summer. So if you want to get it, this is not to be this is not going to be the right school for you, Layla Centner told teachers about the vaccine and virtual call. So nobody spoke um, up with concern, said Jamina Hills, And I don't know if it's Jamina Hills or Hamina Hills, a faculty member who supports Layla Centner's, and said that she had no problem with the school's policy on vaccinations and thought that they should not have been leaked to the press. So all of the controversy could have really been avoided, she said. So the school's official insisted that they were not discouraging students from coming this close to their vaccinated parents. So basically, now that everything is out in the open and more reporters have come visited the school because of all this controversy, now they're kind of backpedaling on some of the things that they've been pushing. And so it says the school's official insisted they were not discouraging students from coming close to their vaccinated parents, which this is uh, in opposition to what we heard in the beginning. That was when they weren't thinking that they were being really publicized about their views. And now that they see that there's more eyes and more people focusing on this school and the things that they're pushing, now they're not willing to come out and say much. So Centner told parents during a meeting Thursday that the teacher mentioned the fifth grade student in her email that had been speaking out of turn. So the teacher has since apologized and retracted her statement, she said. So still the meeting was sometimes intense. Several parents said. One father, they said, got in the face of the faculty member who had spoke out on behalf of the school and the teacher vaccination policy. So the school continued to defend the policy Friday. At our school, we have asked teachers to take a prudent precautionary pause and get through the remaining weeks until the claims being made are further researched, David Centner said. So we encourage teachers to consult their health care provider as they make these medical decisions. So the local state senator Jason W.B. Pizzo, a Democrat, said that he had told that neither the Department of Education nor the Department of Health had jurisdiction over the school's vaccination policies. So Centner Academy had one student receiving a public voucher this year. And so on Thursday, Pizzo introduced a legislative or a mandate that he had hoped would prevent the school and business from prohibiting people from getting vaccinated, calling such policy quackery. Okay, so he had some bipartisan support. So let's show that the Senate is not insane, said the Senate Jeff Brandes of the St. Petersburg, a Republican. It failed on a tied vote. And so back in Miami, Layla Centner appeared unbothered by this. And so on Friday, she posted on Instagram and she would speak the next month Freedom Fighting Festival. That's where she is going to speak at with several conservative political luminaries, including Michael Flynn and Roger Stone. Is its theme Reopen America? So that's where all this is coming from. So just be aware that some of these schools are getting caught up in these political ties with their beliefs on whether people, teachers, kids, parents, there should be vaccinated, and all these conspiracy theories have now seeped into the school system. And so this is also prohibiting teachers from getting employed at these schools or re-employed or going back to their jobs. Now, I will be honest with you. I did see there's some leaflets going around that there's a lot of the hotly debated discussions in the school system now as to whether some teachers can go to work at some schools. Some schools require that. Now, this is what's happening here in California. There's some schools that require that within 7 days you have to show that you have a negative test of COVID. You don't necessarily have to have been vaccinated because people have real strong views against vaccination. But here's my problem. So if you're a teacher that's been vaccinated and you're working around a teacher that hasn't been vaccinated but happens to have the virus, what do you do then? Isn't that exposing the staff and the teachers who have been protected to the virus? And also, isn't that going against the rights of people who don't want to be around people who are not proven to be safe. So I guess that's the reason why they're requesting people who have not been tested or who to get tested, and people who have not gotten the shots to show a negative test reading so that they can work at these schools. And so they're not enforcing, some of the schools are not enforcing that teachers should get tested, and then some feel better if you not only get tested but that you show that you had been vaccinated. So we've got this controversy going on. So I knew this wasn't over. So I think this is a big deal, and they should be talking more about this, and I believe they will very soon, because this is going to become a problem with all of the schools about who's going to work where, and then also schools that are enforcing masks, social distancing, and schools versus schools that aren't enforcing wearing masks and aren't doing social distancing. Where do we fall in that? And so some people may not feel comfortable with working in environments like that, because you don't know who, since the variants are out there, you don't know who these kids and these parents and these staff members, if they're not getting vaccinated, who they've been exposed to, what places they've been around, if they just recently got sick. So this is a big problem. But with that being said, wow, this is crazy. It just seems like it go from one controversial issue to another. Thanks for listening.